Alrighty, everybody. It is currently Thursday, September 4th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from a dorm room that smells of sweet, sweet mold, which I've never smelled mold that was sweet before. So, am I going to leave this place with a lung infection? Yeah, probably. I'll probably end up getting some sort of airway tract infection, and it won't be pleasant at all. But hey, is what it is, man. It's just the situation that we are in. Yeah, so I'm in a dorm room right now. I don't know if you guys can hear that. There's kind of a constant buzz going on. My dorm room is right next to a room that says mechanical, which I don't know what that is. I don't know what processes go on in a dorm room or in like a dorm building that don't go on in a regular house, but I guess there's at least one because there is a constant buzzing. Just constant. It almost sounds like someone's drilling into something, but just from like a very far away. So it has to be some sort of like turbine or combine or some fucking shit like that. That's just constantly going and it's like that, but just like a little more quiet. Almost like if you've ever turned on a fluorescent light and heard the hum of a fluorescent light, it's almost like that, but like a lot louder. You know, it's weird, it's annoying, but at night it's kind of peaceful. You know what I mean? I'm a white noise guy when I go to sleep, and my air conditioner is very loud, and this noise is decently loud as well. So I got a nice little bit of white noise going on. It feels like I'm in the jungle. You know what I mean? I don't need a white noise machine. I just have the constant fucking humming of some noise somewhere far, far away. There's just a machine, just a little machine. I don't even know if it does anything. I don't know if it has any other purpose than to make a noise that to some could be construed as slightly annoying. I think it does that. I think it's just a kind of like slightly annoying machine because I could see myself in the near future trying to fall asleep and just hearing that and just being like, "What the fuck? Somebody turn it off!" like that, full on toddler raging at the fact that it's just constantly going, man. Just constantly. Brrrr. Just getting to me, man. It's like rats in the walls. It might be an Edgar Allan Poe fucking a telltale heart situation, and I just start ripping shit out of the walls. I'm just like, where the fuck is it? Just a sledgehammer against these cinder block walls, just beating the fuck out of these things. That situation might happen. Is it more than likely? Yes. Let's be honest here. Yes. It's pretty likely that I'll just lose my mind one day and go, "What the fuck? Society never helps anyone." And I'll just start ripping out the walls, dude. Just fully. And then after I'm done ripping out the walls, I'll strip all the wires that are in the walls and sell the copper for scrap. And I'll make a decent chunk of change off of that. So hey, man, I'm always a business minded type of guy. All right. There's one thing you can say about me. I always got business on the mind. Always trying to figure out a way to make money, how to hustle, how to put on for my city. Not really a city, more of an unincorporated community, but still similar similar deals going on there. But today's episode, I'm gonna try to keep this one 45 minutes to an hour long because I have to record another one right after this. That's also probably going to be an hour long. My roommate's gone right now. Uh, he hasn't spent either of the nights that we've been here. He hasn't slept in the dorm room, so I don't know. Maybe he's living somewhere else. Either way, it's fine by me because I got time to record this, and it's about 7 in the morning right now, so he probably won't be back before 9. You know, if he's sleeping somewhere else. I don't know where the fuck he's sleeping. I don't know where he's doing it 2 nights in a row, but hey, good for him. Good for me too. Because I don't know. I don't like sharing a room with another person. I can share like a space with someone else. I'm not like that much of a brat, but like just sharing like an open room with someone else, I don't like it at all, you know? And it's not even like a space thing. I can take a very small amount of space and be happy. It's just having like that shared, like singular shared space, right? That we both have to share constantly, basically. I don't like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. Just having to put up with someone else's, little tendencies that I also have. I also do things that are annoying. But yeah, it's just annoying to have to share a room with someone else. It's also annoying to have a manuscript and not know how to read it. What exactly is a manuscript? I don't know. I don't know what's different from a book and a manuscript. They kind of seem like the same thing. Manuscript kind of just seems like the thing that people say instead of book. I guess it's just like a book without a title. I don't know. I think maybe that's what a manuscript is, right? Because no, I was thinking of manifesto there for a second. I was like, because you always hear about like shooters' manuscripts. No, shooters have manifestos. People, other people have manuscripts for some reason. I don't know exactly where the word manuscript comes into play, but it does because today we're talking about the Voynich manuscript. What I'm saying is making no sense. I'm extremely tired, extremely hungry, and just generally in ill health. So, excuse me. Excuse me uh, for my lack of general thought today, And I really do, just broadly across my life, have a general lack of thought, but today especially, there's not going to be a whole lot of thought going on. So let's get this thing going. The manuscript is 240 pages long and is written on vellum, which is a paper like animal membrane. It's basically just like they took the skin of an animal, at least in this scenario. I don't know if it's all skin, but when it comes to the Voynich manuscript, it's skin and they just like clean it basically and just like scrub it and scrape it until it's just like super thin, like paper thin, literally. Like if you've ever, like, I went to an old school or one room schoolhouse for a school trip that I went on, and we got parchment paper to write on and all that shit, and that shit's pretty thick. You know what I mean? You can't really bend parchment paper. I think vellum's on like the same type of thickness. You know what I mean? It's the thick type. It's a pog. It's the pog of papers. All right. Vellum is like the pog of papers. It's fleshy and it's thick. Um, and so that's what this whole manuscript is written on. And it's 240 pages of, animal skin. Very thin animal skin, very like delicate animal skin, but still 240 pages of that. That's got to be thick, thick, dude. That thing's got to have gone to like Dr. Miami or something like that. That's a very thick book. Usually when you get those super, or I guess 240 pages isn't super. It's kind of like yeah, that's like a book for high schoolers, but still, when you start getting up to like those types of books, they start printing them on more thin paper. You know what I mean? Like the Bible's on that super thin paper, but this is on some thick ass paper. All right, the thick type. This is whoever wrote it must have been Jamaican because he liked them real thick. All right, that's all I'll say about that. And the manuscript has 18 queries. I think that's how you say that. Quires, uh, which are bundles of pages, basically. But they're numbered 1 to 20 in numerals from the 15th century. So there's the vellum pages, and then those vellum pages of the book are like divided into quires, I guess, which is basically just like it's a bundle of pages that you like put together and then you put it in the book type of deal. And I guess those queries are also like sections because they're numbered 1 through 20. But remember, there's only 18 of them. So there is at least two missing queries. Dude, these geese, there's just some geese screaming out there, dude. Screaming for their fucking lives. Um, but yeah, so there's at least two missing queries. And the numbering for the queries, which I'm probably saying that completely wrong, and I probably sound like a fucking moron to someone, but queries, it's a fun word to say. I don't know. Um, the the 1 through 20 is in 15th century Roman numerals, which are numerals, but I imagine it's like some Roman numerals type deal. Or it's just regular numbers. I don't exactly know what a numeral is, but whatever it is, I guess it's written like it was in the 15th century, which is like, I didn't know numbers changed too. I know letters changed a little bit. You know, they used to have like that one that was an A and an E next to each other. We don't really use that one anymore, except for in like the dictionary or whatever. But I guess they changed numbers too. So they're fucking changing everything, dude. And you know who I mean by they. All right, you know, you know who I mean. And so we got the numbered queries, and in the top right of each page, there is in the top right of each page, there is page numbering from 1 to 116 written in a later style of numerals, which, like I said, we've got 240 pages here. And it is like kind of debated how many pages are actually in the book because a lot of them are like fold out pages, and sometimes there will be like a one that's like a fucking triple fold out or some shit like that. So it's kind of like 3 pages in one. So you're like, how the fuck, how am I supposed to count that? 240 is kind of the ballpark estimate. So for it only to be 116 numbered pages, everything about this book is fucking weird. And we're not even to like the illustrations in the writing yet, which are even more insane than this numbering system and all the missing shit in there. It's, yeah, it literally, none of it makes any sense. And we're gonna, once we get to talking about the illustrations and the writing system in the book, I'll posit my own theory. It's a pretty simple theory, but I think it's, comprehensive. It covers a lot of the bases in this situation. So I'll talk about that one. But yeah, everything about this book is just, it's so fucking weird. It's like, really? Really? That's what? Like 1 through 116. I would be sympathetic if it was like a 1 through 100 because, some dude who got the book later, because remembering the numbering on the pages is like from a later writing style. I could be sympathetic if it was like a 1 through 100 because it's like, all right, you were going to do, all 240. Originally there was like 270 pages, which we'll talk about soon, but I imagine this dude was going to do all 240, and then he got tired after 100, and he said 100's good enough, and he just never did the rest of them. But 116, that's far more weird of a number, right? It's just everything about it is odd. Like if it was 120, if it was half, okay, that makes sense. If it was 100, if it was like 50, 20, something like that, that would make more sense. But 116, I don't know, maybe they're trying to tell us something, dude. Maybe they're trying to tell us something. So it is also believed that the book's pages were once in a different order. I don't know exactly how they figured this out, but they did. They figured out a lot of stuff about this book, actually, except for the actual content of the book. They understand literally everything else about this book except for the content, which is like, that's just kind of funny that it's like no one, they no, people really did take time to try to figure out the content, but they just never did. And so I guess they just focused on every other aspect of the book, which, I mean, some of it's important, but some of it's not. It's like, what does it matter what order the pages were in? This book is written in a nonsense language and has like alien drawings in it. So what does it matter what order the alien drawings were in? I guess maybe you could say if you put them in the right order, then you'll, unlock something to understanding it a little bit more. But I mean, we don't even know what the fucking letters are about. They don't even know how many different letters the person who wrote this used. So yeah, I don't know why we're trying to figure out what order the pages are in at this point. But hey, fuck it. And then the vellum pages were carbon dated to between 1404 and 1438, and each individual page is a combination of low and high quality calf skin vellum. So they're saying this thing using carbon was made between 1404 and 1438, uh, and that the pages are made out of this weird. So the vellum pages, obviously it's like skin, but it's not really skin either because they take the skin off and then they take like the flesh off. So I guess it's just like the middle part in between skin and flesh. And obviously that's a very delicate type of membrane. So there is there's like a lot of holes and like s- normal impurities that come with the making of vellum paper or parchment or whatever the proper term is. I have no fucking idea. But it has those things. But it is also very high quality in the sense that it's hard to tell which side comes from the skin and which side comes from the flesh part, right? Like that's indicative of high quality vellum. But holes and tears and stuff like that, that's indicative of a low quality vellum. And each individual page has a combination of both of those attributes. So it's very fucking weird. They don't understand. I don't understand. I just learned what this word is yesterday. I mean less than 12 hours ago. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. But less than 12 hours ago, I figured out what this word is and what it meant. So, and the vellum for this book, the amount of vellum it took, 14 to 15 entire calf skins, dude. That's a lot of fucking calves to write this nonsense book. 15 lives had to end. Animal lives, but still lives, had to end in order for that shit ass book to be made. It's crazy. Alright, well, fuck it. Everyone's just gonna have to hear the fucking annoying ass noise that I'm hearing. Hey, is what it is. I don't know. Maybe the remove background feature or remove background noise feature will quiet it down, but it is very, very loud and very annoying. But like I said, hopefully it's like the lawnmower where no one could hear the lawnmower going. But if it's not, fuck it, no one's listening anyway. So who gives that much of a shit? Not me, man. I'm too cool. I'm too cool for that. I'm too worried about books, too worried about the Voynich manuscript, trying to figure out what's going on there. So let's read this next little thing that I wrote down. So the book's cover isn't original, and the paint and ink came from a common, inexpensive source. So yeah, the ink used to write the book and the paint used on the cover, maybe not the cover, because the cover isn't original, but in the pages, right, the illustrations and all that stuff, all of it comes from a pretty inexpensive source, the paint comes from one source and then the ink comes from another, but they're both just like there's nothing fancy about them, right? So you can't really narrow it down from there because it's like trying to figure out who wrote with like an ink or an ink Bic pen, right? Like a black ink Bic pen. You're not gonna figure out who wrote something with a black ink Bic pen, right? Because it's just such a common writing tool. That's basically what's going on here. You're not going to narrow it down at all. You're basically going to have to look at everyone in Europe who knew how to write in the 1400s, which I don't think that's the longest list to ever exist, but it's certainly not the shortest. So no one really knows. The ink doesn't have any hints in it. They're just looking for any fucking hint they can get at this point. And there's not a whole lot of them, dude. There's not a whole lot of hints going on, in this situation. They're hintless, man. They're completely they're completely fucking hintless. Sorry, I was moving my laptop. I don't even have a desk, by the way. My roommate has a desk. He decided to take it despite never being here. He decided he needed a desk despite the fact that I've seen him twice. And it's only been 2 days, so I don't know. Maybe his family's still here or something like that. But yeah, it is. It is very funny. I'm over here scrounging around for scraps, and this motherfucker's got the desk, and he's not even here. But hey, I'll survive. I'll be okay. I promise. So yeah, the ink and the paint and the cover certainly don't tell anything. They didn't say when the cover is from, but it's made out of goat skin, which that is a little bit demonic. You know, I wanted to avoid demons when we were talking about this book, but I think it's hard to avoid. I think it's a demonic cover. It's weird. Um, so yeah, can't really gain anything from any of that information, but the vast majority of the book is written in an unidentified language whose 20 to 25 letters contain only 1 to 2 pen strokes. No one's ever seen anything like this before then or since then in like any context. This writing has not popped up at all. It's this motherfucker's out here writing in wingdings, but he actually knew what it meant. So there's 20 to 25 letters. I guess they don't know exactly how many. And a lot of the book is like super faint because it's from the 15th century or the 1400s. So it's really hard to tell exactly what's going on there. So they don't really know how many letters there are. And then there's a few unique letters that only pop up a few times throughout the book. So they were just kind of like, fuck it. That does, I guess that didn't really matter to them. But the writing is it's odd. It's I don't want to say, demonic once again, but it does have something weird to it. All right, well, fuck it. Everyone's just gonna have to hear the fucking annoying ass noise that I'm hearing. Hey, is what it is. I don't know. Maybe the remove background feature or remove background noise feature will quiet it down, but it is very, very loud and very annoying. But like I said, hopefully it's like the lawnmower where no one could hear the lawnmower going. But if it's not, fuck it, no one's listening anyway. So who gives that much of a shit? Not me, man. I'm too cool. I'm too cool for that. I'm too worried about books, too worried about the Voynich manuscript, trying to figure out what's going on there. So let's read this next little thing that I wrote down. So the book's cover isn't original, and the paint and ink came from a common, inexpensive source. So yeah, the ink used to write the book and the paint used on the cover, maybe not the cover, because the cover isn't original, but in the pages, right, the illustrations and all that stuff, all of it comes from a pretty inexpensive source, the paint comes from one source and then the ink comes from another, but they're both just like there's nothing fancy about them, right? So you can't really narrow it down from there because it's like trying to figure out who wrote with like an ink or an ink Bic pen, right? Like a black ink Bic pen. You're not gonna figure out who wrote something with a black ink Bic pen, right? Because it's just such a common writing tool. That's basically what's going on here. You're not gonna narrow it down at all. You're basically gonna have to look at everyone in Europe who knew how to write in the 1400s, which I don't think that's the longest list to ever exist, but it's certainly not the shortest. So no one really knows. The ink doesn't have any hints in it. They're just looking for any fucking hint they can get at this point. And there's not a whole lot of them, dude. There's not a whole lot of hints going on, in this situation. They're hintless, man. They're completely they're completely fucking hintless. Sorry, I was moving my laptop. I don't even have a desk, by the way. My roommate has a desk. He decided to take it despite never being here. He decided he needed a desk despite the fact that I've seen him twice. And it's only been 2 days, so I don't know. Maybe his family's still here or something like that. But yeah, it is very funny. I'm over here scrounging around for scraps, and this motherfucker's got the desk, and he's not even here. But hey, I'll survive. I'll be okay. I promise. So yeah, the ink and the paint and the cover certainly don't tell anything. They didn't say when the cover is from, but it's made out of goat skin, which that is a little bit demonic. You know, it's I wanted to avoid demons when we were talking about this book, but I think it's hard to avoid. I think it's a demonic cover. It's weird. Um, so yeah, can't really gain anything from any of that information, but the vast majority of the book is written in an unidentified language whose 20 to 25 letters contain only 1 to 2 pen strokes. No one's ever seen anything like this before then or since then in like any context. This writing has not popped up at all. It's this motherfucker's out here writing in wingdings, but he actually knew what it meant. So there's 20 to 25 letters. I guess they don't know exactly how many. And a lot of the book is like super faint because it's from the 15th century or the 1400s. So it's really hard to tell exactly what's going on there. So they don't really know how many letters there are. And then there's a few unique letters that only pop up a few times throughout the book. So they were just kind of like, fuck it. That does, I guess that didn't really matter to them. But the writing is it's odd. It's I don't want to say, demonic once again, but it does have something weird to it. Sorry, I thought my roommate was back, so I spurred the fuck out and I unplugged everything. Um, but the writing, it's odd. It kind of looks like some Lord of the Rings type of shit. No one, no one really knows what's going on there, and it does creep me out a little bit when I look at it. So we're gonna go with demonic, at least for right now. There's something weird about it, is all. I don't know. Maybe I'll posit my other theory probably pretty soon. But yeah, it's the writing, and it's not really like a code or a cipher or anything. We're going to talk about ciphers at the end of this because this doesn't really line up with a lot of ciphers that exist. So, this language also contains no clear punctuation, and there's a lot of spaces between letters and shit like that. So this motherfucker was just writing to write, which is honestly it's pretty similar to how I write too. You know, my handwriting really isn't legible by any normal person, and I don't really use punctuation, and I don't really space my letters out too well. So I write like a retarded person. This is what I'm describing in this situation. That's how I write. Um, so me and this guy were kind of in the same boat. I don't know. I might be the one to crack the case, since I can really get inside of his head in a way other people can't. I might figure it out. Might figure out what's going on with the Voynich manuscript or Voynich. I don't know. The Voynich manuscript is named after a dude, like a Wilfred Voynich or some shit like that, and he's Polish, so you never know how those motherfuckers' names are pronounced. And I don't really know how this dude's name is pronounced. So, dude, and it sounds like a fucking jet is firing up over there. I don't know if you guys could hear that, whatever. So, uh, there is some writing in Latin, but it appears to be unrelated to the words and the illustrations. So, yeah, there's just like some random, and we don't even know if he was the one who wrote it. I don't know if they like cross-checked or like radio dated the ink that was used to write the Latin and the ink that was used to write the nonsense in there. I don't know if they did all that, but so I don't know. Maybe it was written by him, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, and I don't know if they know either. This whole episode is a mess, dude. I I really hope I get my fucking car soon. This is this is insane. That noise is so loud over there. You guys definitely can hear it. You can definitely fucking hear that noise. So I don't know how I'm gonna record a fucking second episode in here, but I'm gonna have to find a way. Gonna have to figure out a way to do it. So yeah, this dude wrote in Latin a little bit in his book, or someone else wrote in Latin in his book, and it's just like it's very infrequent. I think in like the whole 240 pages, there's like he did it like 12 times, or just like a handful of times, or something like that. So I guess the boy was just feeling, and that's I don't know. Maybe that was the demons speaking through him. Do demons speak Latin? Dude, that noise is. Oh no. But if demons, I don't know if they speak Latin or not, but it seems ancient, in the realm of demonocracy, at least to me. So a little bit of Latin in there. And also the smoothness of the unknown text indicates that it isn't a code or a cipher, right? It's just written so like fluidly and smoothly and all that shit that it's like he couldn't have been writing in a language that he didn't understand almost, right? It's like if I tried to write in Japanese right now, no, it would be hard for a Japanese person to read that, right? Because I don't know how to write in Japanese. It's not a series of hand movements that I'm familiar with. Whereas if I wrote in English, yeah, I'm not the best at writing in English, but there's something smooth to it. It's not choppy. I kind of know what I'm doing when I write in English. So this dude, the language that he wrote in was like so smooth that people are like, he knew what he was doing here. You know what I mean? This what he didn't have to like translate it in his head like he was using a cipher. It was just so smooth. Each pen stroke, each stroke of the pen, every line that he did, it was so like just methodical and just normal that it can't be a code or a cipher, right? Because even if you're using a code or a cipher, you're still like double checking the code or the cipher or whatever, to see if what you're doing is right. So they don't really think it's a code or a cipher. I don't, I mean, it does look really smooth. So I don't think it's a code or a cipher either because, I mean, this dude must have needed a lot of practice if it was a code or a cipher to be able to write it that smoothly. And as far as I know, there's no one else wrote ever with this series of letters and symbols and stuff like that. So yeah, probably not a cipher or a code of any kind, which I don't know the difference. So now the images. So the images of the text are broken up into categories as follows: herbal, astronomical, balneological, which we'll talk about, cosmological, pharmaceutical, and recipes. Yeah, that's an odd combination of things. And balneological, I didn't know what that is when I first read it, so I'm assuming the vast majority of other people also don't know what it is. Yeah, it's weird. It's probably weirder than what you're thinking it is. You're probably thinking it, we got herbal and like pharmaceutical, so you're probably thinking it's related to like the plant medicine or something like that. No, it is an odd subject to study. I don't know. A guy like me, I probably wouldn't mind studying it. I know a few dudes that wouldn't mind studying it either, especially if we got the right test subjects involved. Um, but yeah, it's an odd thing. It's so weird. In the book, the what this book does with balnology, I don't know if that's how you say it, ballinology. What this book does with it is even weirder than what it is in and of itself. But let's talk about the herbal shit first. So, the 126 herbal pages contain one to two illustrations in as many paragraphs, which they assume are, some sort of description of the images, uh, which is typical of European herbals, but none of the plants are identifiable. Like, there's some people out there that they think that one of like certain drawings are this or whatever, but none of them are like objectively identifiable. Where it's like you look at that thing and you're like, that's a fucking dandelion, or that's a sunflower, or that's like grass, or whatever. Like that's how that's how weird these drawings are. So these motherfuckers have no idea what any of the plants in there are, which leads to some theories regarding aliens and some stuff like that. Like an alien came down and decided to leave a book about all the plants on his planet. I don't know if I was an alien and I went to another planet, I would be drawing the plants from the planet that I went to, right? Because that's those things are alien to me, but I don't know. Who knows? I'm not saying it wasn't an alien, but I don't think it was. And why would an alien come here during medieval times? I don't know, maybe to like go jousting or something like that, but I don't think that would be the most interesting time for an alien. So we got the herbals, and now there's 17 astronomical pages, astronomical. Jesus fucking Christ, these words. So there's 17 space. All right, let's just simplify that a little bit and call it space. So there's 17 space pages which contain the usual suns and stars, but there is a series of illustrations of zodiac signs that have partly nude women holding labeled stars. And the women you're imagining, maybe something a little sexy. No. Lower your expectations because the drawings of women in this book are, I mean, elementary. Like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. They're not they ain't hot. All right, he's not drawing Venus or Aphrodite or whatever. These are like they're so weird. I don't even know how to describe them. You could look them up, but like they don't have necks or anything. Their proportions are all weird and stuff like that. It's like and the thing is, whoever made this is like a pretty decent illustrator. Not the best, but like a decent enough illustrator. And still, like the images of the women are so weird and just there's nothing. I mean, they're recognizable as human women, but they're just so unrealistic. And then you look at some of the other stuff in there, and you're like, this dude clearly has some level of talent. But then the women are, and that does kind of go towards some alien shit, where you're like, an alien wouldn't exactly like understand the proportions and all that stuff, right? Like if aliens don't have necks, then it doesn't know how to draw a neck, type of stuff. So, but yeah, it's just it's weird, and they're like arranged in a weird way. It's odd. This guy, this guy was just weird. Um, and so next up we have the balanology pages. So balanology is the scientific use and study of therapeutic baths. So, I don't know, putting the Epsom salts up in there, putting the eucalyptus up in there, the, isopropyl alcohol, wherever you put up in your bathtub when you go to soak in it, that's balinology. Which is why I was saying I wouldn't mind, I would not mind studying it if the right test subjects were involved, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything more than that, and I'm not saying anything less than that. All right, because it's true. All right. If I if I gotta watch hot chicks just lay in baths all day, I would be satisfied with my job, or I would be not satisfied. I think it might make me like I might just be so horny that I'm just kind of like mad all the time. I think that's another very real, very distinct option within the world of, balanology for me because it's like I just might get so horny throughout the day that I don't know what to do with myself. And I'm just like, just like gritting my teeth like I'm on fucking meth or whatever, staring at some ladies in a bath. That might also happen to me. Or I walk in and there's just like some naked, hairy ass dude whose fucking pubes are floating around the bathtub, and then the day's ruined. So, balanology, not something that I find particularly interesting. But this guy did. So, there's 20 balanological pages which show small nude women wearing crowns in tubs that are connected by elaborate pipes that flow from one page to the next. So, yeah, once again, it's kind of weird. You can look up the balanological paintings or illustrations of the Voynich manuscript. I'll look them up real quick. And it's, like I said, the drawings aren't amazing, but they're like decent enough. And that's kind of the weird thing about them, where it's like you know what's going on, but still like it's almost like some Dr. Seuss type stuff, where it's just like I know this guy knows how to draw, but still those like the illustrations are just so weird that I mean you can tell what's going on, but they're just odd, man. I always found ever since I was a little kid, I always found Dr. Seuss like kind of off-putting, where I'm like, there's just something. It's almost like how some people are with Uncanny Valley. That's kind of how I am with Dr. Seuss, where I'm just like, there's something so odd about this. Yeah, the Balanology things, I have them up right now. Yeah, they're weird. And the women, like I said, he liked them thick or pregnant. It's kind of hard to tell, but he liked them somewhat. God, these paintings are so weird. Oh, and the women are actually, in some cases, like connected to the tubes. Like their hands and feet are in the tubes. I didn't know that. And sometimes they're just chilling in the tub together, holding hands. But yeah, he liked the thickums. You know what I mean? I think this guy was into pregnant women, which might be the weirdest thing about him. Might be the most unusual thing about him. No, no, it's not. I mean, pregnant women. I don't know. Maybe there's just like some weird like pheromone thing they have, but sometimes I see a pregnant chick and I'm like, God damn, I'm not I'm not like into the fact that there's a baby in there. Like, sometimes, and look, I've taken a trip down BBW lane. I'm not gonna say I'm above the BB dubs. I'm not gonna say I'm above the thickums. All right, I haven't literally taken a trip down BBW lane, uh, because I'm a lonely virgin. But I mean, I'm not the biggest hater of all time. And I would say I'm not the biggest hater of pregnant women of all time. Goddamn, I just threw in a Zin, and I've only been eating 2 meals a day, and they're both like school cafeteria meals. So I've not been getting a lot of calories. So this is what fentanyl must feel like. I'm like leaning over right now, like the rest of this podcast might be recorded from me just like leaning over, but whatever. Who cares? All right, next up. So there are 14 cosmological pages, which I don't know what the difference is between, I guess astronomy is like stars. I guess that's what astronomy is because the cosmology pages have like these weird maps and stuff like that on it, which once again kind of lends itself to the alien thing, which I don't know when Copernicus or Galileo, really got in the game, but I think it was a little bit later on, after the 1400s when these things were made or when this manuscript was made. Yeah, Galileo was the mid 1500s is when he was born and he died in like the 1600s. So yeah, about like 100 years after this dude. And I think Copernicus also did stuff. Yeah, he also did stuff with stars. Yeah, and he was also kind of after this time period of when they dated the book to be from. So, and also the dating of the book comes from the ink, not like the pages or anything like that. Or maybe it's the pages and not the ink. I don't remember, but they didn't carbon date both of those things, maybe because they can't. I don't know exactly how that works. I know generally how it works because certain carbon isotopes decay over time, and so they can measure how much of a carbon isotope is in there and figure it out from there. So, yeah, this guy, the space revolution didn't happen yet. People weren't looking at the stars like that. And so, goddamn, those bitches are some loud ass bitches out there. Whatever. Hey, bitches are loud. It's just what bitches do. All right, they're like geese. Um, and so yeah, it's just weird. And so one of these maps is a 6-page foldout. So I mean, this motherfucker was making flip books. This might be a children's book, and we just don't fully understand it. Um, but yeah, so there's a 6-page foldout of islands that have castles that are connected via causeways. And a causeway is just like it's a path or a road or a street or whatever that goes over like a open space, right? Like water. But since these are in the cosmological section, they go through space. So this might be some weird ass alien shit. We're going to talk about theories soon, and I'm going to talk about my theory a whole lot because I think I got it close. I got it closer than most people want to admit. So yeah, just weird shit like that. You know, I don't know. And I think it's like they can't really tell what these drawings are like like if they're supposed to be representing like specific planets and stuff like that. And it's also very hard even now for us to see planets and shit like that. It's a very like complicated process even now. So he could be talking about planets that are like a million or like 10 million light years away, and we just have no idea. So yeah, very odd. And then there's 18 pharmaceutical pages of plant parts that range from mundane to fantastical. And I ripped that straight from the Wikipedia page that I was reading. I would never describe something as mundane to fantastical, but it is an accurate description. The drawings in there are just so fucking weird. And it's literally Dr. Seuss, which I don't know. That might lead me to believe that this was just a dude who was kind of ahead of his time, where it's like some Lord of the Rings type shit. Like Tolkien Tolkien was doing all sorts of weird shit with like making his own languages and stuff like that and having like these weird landscapes and cultures and all that stuff. So this might be kind of similar to that in a sense, where it's just we're reading it and we're thinking this guy was like dead serious when he was writing it, when in reality he might have just been like writing a fantasy book or something like that. But fantasy books just didn't exist back then, so the archaeologists and the, historians now don't consider that option. I don't know. That's kind of that's one aspect of my personal theory as to what's going on here. Um, but yeah, the drawings are there's something weird about them, Or this guy, fuck it. We'll get to my theory in a second. But yeah, plant drawings and stuff like that. And the reason that's pharmaceutical is because back then, and even now, quite frankly, almost all medicine comes from plants, from various parts of the plants, whether it's the fruit or the roots or the leaves and stuff like that. So that's why that's pharmaceutical in nature. And some of the plant parts are in jars, apothecary jars, which apothecary is, I think that's just the study of using plants for medicine. So yeah, that's the pharmaceutical section. So this guy was into all sorts of things, but we'll talk about how the pharmaceutical and the plant shit relates to the stars and stuff like that. Obviously, we understand how it relates to balinology, but how it relates to stars is a little bit more complicated. And then there's 25 pages that have recipes. I don't know how they know these are recipes because I think these are just like text, right? I think the pages that have the recipe on it are just text, right? There was no Julia Child back then throwing shit together and like showing you how to do it. So, and there's no illustrations there. So I don't know how they know that it's recipes. I don't know. Maybe they like cross-checked it, you know, with the text that's in the plant parts. They cross-checked that with the parts that are in the recipe section, and then they figured out, oh, he's talking about putting all these different parts together. We don't know exactly what he's talking about, but it's a recipe of some sort. I don't know how they figured it out. Um, but the recipe section is broken into short paragraphs marked with a star in the left margin. So I guess it was important to him. I guess the recipes, he's an old black woman, he's an old southern woman. The recipes are really important to this guy because he was putting stars next to him, just making sure everyone knows, hey, this is a recipe right here. This is collard greens, this is mac and cheese. This Zen is still kicking my ass, by the way. I'm faded off the Zen, dude. I think I'm getting faded. Um, But yeah, that's what's going on there. So it is believed that the book is related to medieval medicine due to the herbal and pharmaceutical sections, and then also the reason stars. I'm not going to try to say the words. The reason that like the stars and the space and the planet shits relate to that is because back in the day, the stars in the sky change, right? Based kind of off what time of year it is. I guess I don't know. I didn't know that was true, but I guess it is. And you can also see different planets throughout the year, right? Like I think in summer you can really see like Mars and Venus and stuff like that. So they think that um the space shit is him saying what time of year you should be harvesting the parts of the plants, right? Because when Venus pops up in the middle of summer, okay, that means it's time to, pick the dandelions or whatever. So they think that's what the astronomical star shit is. Is he's talking about when you see, fucking Orion in the sky, go out and get some acorns off the ground or whatever. So now we're going to talk about some theories regarding the author and the language, and I'm going to talk about my own personal theory, which is simply this guy was on Adderall. And in the 1400s. That's my personal theory. There was some sort of ancient Adderall that this guy took um to fucking, freak out and make this thing. Anyone that's ever seen the Adderall episode of Family Guy where Stewie gets the Adderall and then Brian takes it and he writes like this big, fantasy novel and then he shows it to George R. R. Martin, that's kind of what I'm basing this theory off of. I'm basing this theory off of an episode of Family Guy where Brian takes Adderall, but still, I think it's a pretty decent theory from there. Or the other possibility is he somehow got into some sort of psychedelic shit. My personal theory, because there's, I mean, yeah, it just looks like something someone on psychedelics would draw. Like it's almost like fractal, the drawings, where they're just like these weird repeating patterns and stuff like that. So it kind of looks like something you would see when you're on acid or mushrooms or something like that. So I think that's also another very real possibility. This guy just, ate some bread that was contaminated with the mold that makes LSD, and he just wrote this whole entire thing in like 1 or 2 nights. That could also be another another possibility, or he just had a full-on schizophrenic mental break because schizophrenia existed back then too. They just they would just kill you if you had it though. So maybe he didn't want to come out and and tell everyone what he was doing. So he kind of compartmentalized it and put it into this book. It does look like the drawings of a schizophrenic man or some sort of man with another type of mental illness or something like that. Someone who's in some sort of weird altered state. That's kind of what these drawings look like. But let's talk about what people like officially think about it. I don't know how realistic any of this stuff is, and we'll talk about why it's not exactly realistic, but fuck it. So, according to a letter from the 17th century, the manuscript was written in the 12th century by Roger Bacon. It wasn't written in the 12th century, it was written in the 13th century, aka the 1200s. I just miswrote it. So, and then we obviously have the carbon dating of the book, putting it in the mid to or the early to mid 1400s. So, yeah, it doesn't the two dates don't really line up because Roger Bacon lived in the 1200s, so basically 200 years before this thing was written. And the carbon dating could also be kind of imperfect, but once again, that's a pretty solid piece of scientific evidence dating this thing to the 1400s. And the book is also it's passed through many hands and it's been, touched up and rewritten and stuff like that. So they could have just accidentally tested things that were from or things that were touched up in like the 1400s or something like that, maybe. But it doesn't line up. And this dude, Roger Bacon, he didn't have any shit like that going on. He didn't have any like the writing specifically. The plants and all that stuff, that does make sense for our boy Roger Bacon, but the writing and stuff, it doesn't connect to Roger Bacon at all. And this is a letter from the 1600s, and in the 1600s they still thought there was fucking krakens in the sea and stuff like that. They were burning witches at the stakes. So I don't exactly know, how valid that letter is that was written in the 1600s. And it was also written hundreds of years after the book was written. So who really knows? But Roger Bacon was a medieval polymath, which we talked about what the word polymath means a little bit in the Benjamin Franklin episode, but it's just basically someone who studies everything. So he's a polymath, philosopher, scientist, theologian, and friar from the 13th century. And a friar, by the way, the difference between a friar and a monk is that a friar is a monk, but it's a type of monk that like lives in a community and serves that community. So that's the difference, right? You think of monks, you think of dudes living up in the mountains, praying, meditating, doing shit like that, talking to wolves. A friar is more of a city monk, you know what I mean? He goes around, chills with people, I guess, collects alms for the poor, stuff like that. And so this dude was a friar, which is a type of monk. So yeah, and I don't know. This does seem, like I said, there is something kind of like demonic or supernatural about it. So it doesn't really make sense why a monk would write this. But there's also like that weird, like the Devil's Bible or whatever they call it, that was written by a monk who like if you've never heard of this before, I don't remember the exact name of it. I'll look it up real quick, but it's like this 1,000-page thing that looks like it was all written in a single night, which is like physically impossible, right? But so religious people or people that believe in like superstition and stuff like that, believe he was like possessed by a demon that wrote this thing. So yeah, the Codex Gigas is a 13th century manuscript from it's 577 pages, and it's also from the 13th century. So a lot of weird shit going on around then. I mean, in this book is it's massive as well. The Voynich manuscript isn't nearly as big as the Codex Gigas, but still, just a lot of weird shit going on then. And I think it was due to people like unknowingly ingesting psychedelics, which that's also probably the theory that Joe Rogan would have. So I might just be on some Joe Rogan shit right now. But back to Roger Bacon, the main one of the main things that kind of puts this on Roger Bacon is that Roger Bacon placed emphasis on studying nature through empirical evidence. So empirical evidence is just like basically the scientific process, but this book, like we talked about, there's nothing, it's not super based in reality, right? Because the drawings and like the writing and just everything about it is it's so unnatural that it doesn't really seem like something Roger Bacon would do, right? And, even disregarding the writing system that Roger Bacon didn't use, I guess he wrote in like Old English or whatever. Uh, it just doesn't line up with my boy Roger. If I know Roger, and I do, he wouldn't have written something like this. So, uh, Wilfred Voynich, the dude who basically uh, published or not published, like exposed this book to the public, he believed it could have been written by Albertus Magnus, who was a friar that was very similar to Roger Bacon. And this guy, Albert, some people call him like Albert the Great or Albert like the genius and shit like that. He was on some similar shit to Robert Bacon. He was a philosopher and a theologian. Dude, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand what mechanical means. I don't, I'm sure you guys can hear that noise. But it is so loud and it is grinding, dude. There's something wrong with the mechanical room. I don't know what it could possibly be for. It's not the central AC because we do have a little bit of central AC in this building, but for the most part, it's like window units. So I don't know what the fuck that noise is, but I don't know. Whatever. Back to Wilfred Voynich. It's It was some sort of old ancient dude who lived in the woods and loved nature. That I feel like that fact is obvious at this point. Even if it was written by a dude who took ancient Adderall or LSD or whatever, he still must have loved nature because there's so much, plants and stuff like that in this book. All right. And so when Voynich first announced the manuscript in 1915, some accused him of forgery, but later carbon dating says the materials were produced in the 15th century, which that doesn't immediately exempt him from forgery because this dude, he was like an antique type of guy. Um, so he could have had access to like unused ink and vellum from the 15th century and just used that. Uh, but I guess the ink would have dried out by the time he was going to use it, basically 500 years after the book was written. So he basically is exempt from forgery at this point. But some people were like, dude, you're a fucking used car salesman who's trying to pawn this book off on us by, telling us it's some great ancient thing when in reality you wrote it yourself. That's what people were accusing him of in 1915. And it wasn't public until 1915. It basically passed from like rich person to rich person to rich person until Voynich basically just got it from someone in 1912. So the book shares similarities with the works of 15th century Italian engineer Giovanni Fontana. Uh, and Fontana wrote in ciphers, but these were pretty uncomplicated basic substitution ciphers. Uh, and they were pretty dissimilar to the Voynich manuscript. Like I said, he was an engineer. He wasn't too focused on nature and stuff like that. He was more of a Leonardo da Vinci type, where he was trying to make flying machines and, all that type of stuff. So they're like, yeah, he probably didn't write this shit because it's too dissimilar from the actual subject matter of the book to the ciphers used to write it. And once again, they don't even know if this language is a cipher of English or German or some other similar language from Europe. Um, so it might have just been a dude that this language or a language that this dude made up one day. I think that's the most likely theory, but they don't exactly know. We're going to talk about the cipher theory a little bit. So the letter frequencies within the book rule out simple substitution ciphers, and a substitution cipher is like A equals fish, B equals cat, C equals dog, stuff like that. So, and obviously letter frequencies, they combed over a bunch of European languages, from the time, and it's like in English, for example, right? The letters E, A, the vowels are used a whole fuck ton, right? And then also letters like Q and X are not super common within the English language. So it's basically like there's no vowels, or there's not enough vowel frequency. There's too many Q's and X's basically. There's not enough A's and there's too many Q's and X's. So it basically rules out a simple substitution cipher. And that's the extent of my knowledge when it comes to ciphers. I've tried to understand other ciphers and I don't get it, man. And when I say try to understand, I mean I looked at like a TikTok video or like a Wikipedia page for 5 seconds and I didn't immediately understand it, so I gave up. Um, but yeah, it rules out a simple substitution cipher though, according to these, cipher experts. And teams of people have poured over this for decades. So I really do think it's its own, independent language with its own grammar and stuff like that that this dude wrote in, as opposed to it being a cipher. But the current guess, according to these cipher experts, is that it uses a verbose cipher, which makes the text longer than it originally was, right? And it's weird. I don't know exactly how this works, but it'll be like the letter A becomes three letters. It's not the word becomes longer, but each individual letter becomes some longer version of itself as a code, right? Like I said, the letter A becomes 111 and B becomes 11 and just shit like that. So they think he used that because I guess the length of the words and stuff like that, and just how big the text is as a whole for how kind of limited the illustrations are. But once again, a dude who knows a lot about plants can write an entire book about sunflowers or whatever. So I don't think that the text was elongated on purpose or anything like that. I really do think it's its own language that this guy made up. And then finally, the manuscript is currently in Yale's manuscript library, which I guess Yale just has a has a library just for weird fucking unintelligible manuscripts from the 15th century or the 14th century or 15th century, yeah, 15th century, 1400s. So yeah, in Yale, they're into a whole bunch of shady shit. But that's all I've got for this episode, guys. I hope you have a good day, good week, good year, good life. I'm gonna try to edit out some of the noises and some of like the blank spaces and stuff like that. But yeah, it's complicated. It's a lot of bullshit, man. Look, first episode in the new dorm room. You gotta give me a little bit of leeway. All right, sorry. All right. But yeah, I'll see you guys. Uh, Today, I guess I'm gonna record the current events episode right now too. So I'll see you guys there. All right, peace out.